All right, duality of man, the shadow and the persona. Anybody happen to know where this is from? Have you ever seen the movie Full Metal Jacket before? Yeah, it's from Full Metal Jacket. There's a scene in the movie where there's a private. It's about the Vietnam War, in short. And there's a guy in the movie. They call him Private Joker because he's a private and he jokes. He tells jokes. Jokes around anyway. There's a guy who they find kind of this mass grave, and if I remember the scene correctly, I might have some details incorrect, but the colonel shows up, and Private Joker is wearing this helmet. Anything seem strange to you about this helmet? The peace sign. Paired up along with what? Born to kill. Well, which is it? Are you born to kill, or are you a hippie? You know? And so the answer is probably
You're born to kill.
yes. Probably, the answer is probably yes to that. You're probably a hippie who was born to kill, or you were born to kill, but now you're a hippie. The idea is that there are these two sides to everybody. So if you ever do watch that movie, the colonel kind of goes up to him and asks him, and starts giving him a brief over. He's asking him, what's written on your helmet? He's like, sir, born to kill, sir. And what's with the peace button? And then he says, I don't know, sir. So you better figure it out fast. He says, I don't know, sir. So finally he threatens to court-martial him. And then the guy says, sir, I was talking about the duality of man. The Jungian thing, sir. The colonel just stands there. He has no idea what he's talking about. And he just goes, whose side are you on, son? You always bring it right back to that. If you don't understand something, wait. Whose side are you on? Ours or theirs? So this is kind of an illustration of the idea of this duality that we all kind of seem to have. So according to Jung, our personalities express themselves in these two really, really important ways. You should absolutely have notes on this. The persona. The persona, in short, is the face that you show the world. It's the mask that you put on that you show the world. Excuse me. The persona is the mask that you put on that you show the world. So when you come in the morning and I ask, good morning, how are you all today? And some of you, maybe you're like, oh, I'm doing great, but really you're dying inside. That's your persona. It's the face that you show the world. I have a quote up here from Jung, just kind of explaining this. But the idea is that this is what you show the world. It's the mask that you wear. In fact, the word persona itself means mask. Take a guess. What word is persona related to? Personality, yeah. That's your personality. So the personality is the thing that you show the world. Now, after that, you've also got this other part of yourself, which is the shadow. And the shadow is largely these unconscious aspects of your personality. The things that you might not really be aware of. They don't have to necessarily be negative parts of you, but they typically are. They typically are. It's the things that you try to suppress. It's the things that you try to suppress. So if you remember, when I was talking about this, I said that you experience something in your life. The question of, does it go into your consciousness? Is it something that you're always aware of? Or does it get shuffled off into your unconsciousness? That's the job of the ego. The ego is this kind of like psychic thing that when you trip and fall, it says, oh man, you're never going to forget that, and it pushes it up into your consciousness. Or it says, oh man, you don't want to remember that, and it pushes it into your unconsciousness. That's the ego. So essentially the ego is the thing that filters it either into your consciousness or down also, I guess, into your shadow as well. And again, these are usually negative things. These are things that we don't like about ourselves. So, that those terrible thoughts that you have, all of a sudden just pop up out of nowhere. Like you didn't plan it. Like but you're embarrassed about it. I'll just leave you with that. I'm sure you can all think of some things like that. Although I imagine a lot of us, our initial reaction is, not me. Sometimes you have friends, who have thoughts like, God, I wish I could kill you right now. Or something that you really wanted to say to somebody, but then you realize how horrible it would be. Some people are very well in tune with their shadows, which means that you've gone through this process called individuation. individuation. That's a really important term for Jungian psychology. And I guess for life generally. Individuation. Remember, that's one of those things I talk about with regards to note-taking. If I say it, I think it's important. If I repeat it, that's something that you should write down. If I write it down, you absolutely should write it down. And individuation is this process of integrating your shadow and your persona. Essentially, it's the process of becoming a whole person. Taking as much out of the consciousness and putting it, taking as much out of the unconscious and putting it into the conscious. Taking your shadow and your persona and putting them together. So what that might look like is, well, I mean, dark humor looks a lot like that. Dark humor looks a lot like that. When you realize that there's some negative aspect of yourself, but you accept it. Not in the sense of like, well, that's just who I am. I just like killing people. But instead, you integrate it into your persona. You go, wow, at heart, I really am born to kill. But I make the decisions every day not to. That's the persona and the shadow kind of coming together into one. Because the danger is that if you ignore what's in your shadow, or the idea pops into your head, and you're like, I could kill you right now. Oh God, I don't want to think about that. No. That's you trying to suppress it and stop it from manifesting. Now, there's a difference between dwelling on it. Like if that's your impulse, you don't want to dwell on it in the sense of like, no, that's just my shadow. It's okay for me to feel like I really want to kill everybody. In fact, now let me put together a plan on how to do it. Now let me take steps towards making that happen. That's the bad part. Because these are terrible things about ourselves that we know are terrible about ourselves. And as soon as we start making occasions to carry out those negative things, that's a bad thing. But instead, the proper approach is something pops into your head like oh, I want to kill everybody, and you go, why do I want to do that? And then you start thinking about why it is that you want to do it. What is it about me that would want that to happen? And then maybe at the end of all of it, what you start to realize is that it's an expression that you feel like you're completely powerless in your own life. You feel like you have no control over your own life. And so because you have no control over your own life, you're angry and frustrated, and that's the most extreme thing that you can do. You can think of some people who are, trolls. Trolls are kind of like this. These are people a lot of times who, some people just do it because they think it's funny. Some people really, really enjoy pissing people off, And people will say things like, I just say it to make everybody mad. Why would you want to make everybody mad? What's the deal? I just think it's funny. You think it's funny to make the world a worse place? Genuinely? Yeah. Do you really, though? And you'll find that when you ask people these kinds of questions, we come to the understanding from ourselves that, no, it's not a good thing. But we also don't want to deal with why it is that we want to make the world a worse place, which is essentially that we feel like losers, we feel like, and by the way, this isn't to say that we are those things. I'm saying that we can feel like we are these things. You can feel like you're a loser, you can feel like you don't have any power or control over your own life, and this is just one of those things that we do just to try to take over some control over lives. This is the process of individuation, of exploring your shadow, the dark parts of yourself, bringing them into the consciousness so that you can now deal with them. Because what you might end up finding out is that maybe, again, you have a sense that you have no power over your own life, and that's why it is that you have these impulses. But then when you analyze yourself, you realize, wow, I have way more power than I realized I have. So then all of a sudden, these impulses now start to wane, they start to go away. When you start to realize that there's no reason to be frightened by serpents, then maybe at that point you can start to not be afraid of them. And let's face it, it's probably a good thing if we can erase as many of these fears in our lives as possible. So the persona again is that face that we show the world. The persona, the shadow, are those dark things underneath. By the way, somebody who has, well, I'll leave it at that. This is what it's almost all about, the archetypes. This is super duper important. These are symbolic images that we unconsciously understand. So for example, earlier I mentioned the flood, the water. We understand intuitively that water is something that cleanses. We understand that it's something that judges. It's something that purifies. You should absolutely have these things down about the archetypes. Do not miss these things about the archetypes.
Can you make them bigger or no?
No. The screen can, but it chooses not to for some reason. You don't need to worry about the graphics so much. It's just kind of the information that I...
Oh, is that information?
Yeah. I'm going to give you a bigger graphic in just a minute. As I point out there, I don't need to tell you what a beach symbolizes. Even if you've never been to a beach before, you probably have an understanding that a beach symbolizes tranquility and peace. Again, I don't know how many of us have ever been to a forest, but we intuitively seem to know that a forest is something that is scary, mysterious, all of that. And again, the important thing is that it's something that transcends all of humanity. It doesn't matter if you're telling a story in Africa to a tribe, they're going to understand that the forest represents these things. It doesn't matter if you're talking to Native Americans in the U.S., they're going to understand what that forest means, even if they've never been to one. You know, we just seem to know what these things represent. And this is a really difficult concept a lot of times for us to get our heads around, but once we do, it starts to make a lot more sense. And, oh, that's stupid, of course it does. Once we get our heads around it, we start to realize how kind of omnipresent these things are. They're everywhere. Ultimately, what we're looking at on a personal level is understanding these because, as we're going to see, there are these 12 kind of personality types. And all of you fit into one of these. Maybe two. But at least, but certainly one. No more than two.
3?
No, that's more than two. So for example, everybody in here some way, somehow, will get more kind of detailed about it, but everybody in here is an artist or a creator. You know, you're a sage, you know, a wise person. You're a child, an innocent, whatever. You're an explorer, or you're a rebel, an outlaw, or you're a hero, or you're a wizard, magician type. This doesn't mean that you do magic, but it'll make sense. Or you're a jester, you're a joker, you're like an everyday person, just a regular person, or you're a lover. In other words, you a caregiver. Difference there is that, you know, don't think of lover as like something like, you know, like I don't want to say it. It'll make sense when we talk more deeply about it. It means that you're somebody who's interested in personal, intimate connections. That's all it is. And once you kind of recognize which of these things you are, then what you should be pursuing in life will make a hell of a lot more sense. It's one of the great ways of discovering yourself. So, now, keep in mind that all the archetypes have a positive aspect to them, all these personality archetypes, but they also have a shadow part of them as well. So, yeah, so for example, let's say that you are like the ruler type of personality, right? You want to be the leader, you want to be in charge. That's fine, that's good, but understand that the thing that you're really after in your life is control. Control is very, very important to you. But if you take too much control, you become a tyrant. This is the negative aspect of it. It isn't that you should, you know, I'm the ruler, so therefore I should just rule over everything and everyone. Then you're a tyrant. You know, every hero has the capacity to become a villain. You know, what it is to be a hero or a villain is really, really narrow. Was it in this class I asked you about, how many of you have seen Money Heist? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember I mentioned the one guy, Guardia. He's I was talking to somebody about his character actually just yesterday, and it's poor writing. It's unfortunate in the writing, but at one point all of a sudden they decide to make him like a racist, homophobic, xenophobic. The problem with that is that before that, he was a villain, but he didn't know why he was a villain. You're just like, I just don't like him, but he's the good guy. He's trying to stop the bad guys. Yeah, but I don't know. And it's a good thing that makes you wrestle with that. As soon as you make him all these other things, racist, sexist, homophobic, as soon as you make him all these other things, now it's easy for us to justify why we don't like him. But it would have been better if they had left those things out of it, because it forces us to kind of wrestle with why is it that we're kind of treating him like a villain, even though he's actually being quite heroic in what he's doing. It would have been a much more complex character. You'll find that like a sage, if you're somebody who's you know, you want to be the wise person, you're going to seek knowledge, but if you do too much of it, you're going to become an elitist. You're going to think that you're better than everybody else. I just had a conversation with somebody recently. They came to me and they told me that they were struggling with this idea that they were better than other people. I hear you. That can be a real struggle for some.
Are they not though?
What's that?
Are they not?
Are they not better?
Yeah.
Hear me out. It's possible to be better. We're all better than everybody else, if that makes sense, in certain ways.
Yeah.
But in terms of your value and your worth as a human being, no. No one's better than anybody else. The drug addict is no better or worse than Elon Musk.
But like if we were to send people to space, who would we send? Like rich people?
Send me.
Or like smart people?
Yes, send
They
me.
would send rich people instead of smart people?
No, the rich people probably, if the rich people were smart, yeah,
Oh, yeah,
they're
that's
paying
true.
for it. Yeah, if they're paying for it. But by and large, we're going to send people, the rich people will probably pay to send the smart people to make sure it's safe first.
Yeah.
Yeah, send the rocket first. Let's see what happens. All right, looks safe. I'll go. Yeah.
You probably want to send like a bug or not like a bug.
A bug. Send the roach.
Like
Represent
didn't
humanity.
didn't they send like a monkey?
Yeah, I sent a monkey, and the monkey. We sent a dog first. The dog didn't. Well, the Russians sent a dog.
That's
Where?
Where?
Into space. Didn't work out for him.
It died.
Burned up.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The Russians had a guy also burn up in the atmosphere. Yeah, you can actually go and look at the
Who was the one in the United States?
the what?
Who was the one that looked like Brandon in the United States?
He was a Russian. I can't remember his name. He wasn't a real person. He was a Russian.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I can't pronounce it, but you can go up there and you can see the videos of his charred body and the pictures of his charred body and everything. If you're into that, if that's something that you want to integrate from your shadow into your persona.